There was no inflation when I became president. You know why?
What?
The economy was flat on its back.
What?
15% unemployment. He decimated the economy.
Are you insane? This is the biggest inflation I've ever seen in my life. This is like the most inflation ever.
President Biden, while black unemployment dropped to a record low under your presidency, black families still earn far less than white families. Black mothers are still 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes, and black Americans are imprisoned at 5 times the rate of white Americans. What do you say to black voters who are disappointed that you haven't made more progress?
They acknowledge they made a lot of progress, number one. The fact of the matter is there's more small black businesses that have been started than any time in history. Number two, the wages of black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long, long time. Number three, we're providing housing for black Americans and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporations that collude to keep people out of their houses. And in addition to that, we find that the impact on...
I mean, yes, black unemployment is the lowest it's been in a long time. But think about it. It was the lowest it's been in a long time from 2020. So that means in 2020, it was the lowest it's been in a long time. Then when you became president, it skyrocketed. Then now in 2024, when you're going your way out the door, it's the lowest it's been in a long time. And I just looked it up. I'm not just making this up. I literally just looked it up. I wish I could show you. You see that chart? You see that chart? The peak is when he became president. That's when that's the peak. So yes, the lowest is 4 years. That's the long time. It was lower in 2020. In 2016 to 2020, that was the lowest. And this is not me making this up. I looked it up just now.
The choice that black families have to make relative to child care is incredibly difficult. When we did the first major piece of legislation in the past, I was able to reduce black child care costs. I cut them in half. We got to make sure we provide for child care costs. We got to make sure, because when you provide those child care protections, you increase economic growth because more people can be in the job market. So there's more to be done, considerably more.
Is he okay? Why does it sound like he's reading something off of a teleprompter or something? And I'm not trying to make fun of Joe Biden or anything. Like, genuinely, is he okay? It sounds like he needs a break. He needs a break or something. I don't know.
To be done, but we've done a great deal so far, and I'm not letting up, and they know it.
You have 49 seconds left. What do you say to black voters who are disappointed with the progress so far?
I say I don't blame them for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly. For example, I provided for the idea that any black family first-time home buyer should get a $10,000 tax credit to be able to buy their first home so they can get started.
So he just said any black family should get a $10,000 tax credit. And this is kind of a fundamental issue with Joe Biden's look on race in America. There are black families, believe it or not, that are extremely affluent. And if you just say, okay, all black families will get a $10,000 tax credit, these are the type of legislation that builds racial tension in our country. If you know that black unemployment was at a peak during your presidency, and that black families make a typical amount of what, $40,000 or less, why didn't you just say, even if you just wanted to be black people, whatever, you could have just said families that make under this amount get a $10,000 tax credit. If you say something like that, that will probably disproportionately still benefit the black community. But rather, you say, okay, just black families get a $10,000 tax credit when buying homes. I can make $300,000 and still get a $10,000 tax credit, but that broke white family down the street who makes $20,000, they aren't getting anything. And this is the reason why it's racial tension. This is the reason why people have problems with the way you address racial issues. Because yes, you can say you're helping the black community, but really, you just look at the black community as a monolith and say, you know what? Here's $10,000. I can make whatever. Okay, I'm making $200,000 a year. Thanks, I'll take that. Free college. Thanks, I'll take that. Affirmative action. Thanks, I'll take that. I don't even need it. But that's the problem, bro. You don't even. Are you even trying to narrow down on struggling black families, or are you just saying, you know what, all black people are just struggling, whatever, you're black, so you're struggling?
I made sure that we're in a situation where all those black families and those black individuals who provided had to take out student loans that were ballooning, that if they were engaged in nursing, doctor, and anything having to do with volunteerism, if they paid their bills for 10 years on their student debt, all the rest was forgiven after 10 years. Millions have benefited from that. And we're going to do a whole lot more for black families.
Thank you, President Trump.
And he caused the inflation. He's blaming inflation, and he's right, it's been very bad. He caused the inflation, and it's killing black families and Hispanic families and just about everybody. It's killing people. They can't buy groceries anymore. They can't. You look at the cost of food where it's doubled and tripled and quadrupled. They can't live. They're not living anymore. He caused this inflation. I gave him a country with essentially no inflation. It was perfect. It was so good. All he had to do is leave it alone. He destroyed it with his Green New scam and all this money that's being thrown out the window. He caused inflation.
And another problem that I have with President Biden's approach to black issues is that he would say something like, I'm giving black families a $10,000 home credit. Let's do the math. What does the average black family make? It's around, what, $40,000 a year? If you're making $40,000 a year, and let's say you do have 2 kids, with these type of numbers, and this is just my personal financial opinion, I may be wrong, I don't think you're even concerned with buying a house right now. I really don't. So when you say $10,000 credit, that's not helping a lot of struggling families, because most of them aren't necessarily looking to buy a house. They're looking to stay afloat. They're looking to just break out of poverty in general. A house, of course, but more than likely, they're looking at how to pay for their groceries, how to pay for schools for their children, how to pay for uniforms for their children, how to pay their rent on time. They're not looking at, oh, how much do I have to put down to buy this home right? No, they're looking at merit. Like, a better approach, in my opinion, would say, okay, the black community is struggling. I'm going to try to fix their marriage rates. Marriage will double your income. We are the least married group in the country. That will single-handedly probably pull the black community out of poverty if he found a way to put in programs to make it more accessible for marriage or something like that, a free marriage program. Oh, how about this? Instead of doing welfare where you're promoting single motherhood, you do something that promotes Planned Parenthood. You do something that promotes marriage. We'll give you a tax credit if you get married. We'll give you social benefits if you're a black family who makes less than this and you get married. Something like that. Anything. Even if you disagree with me, you understand where I'm coming from, right? But let's continue.
As sure as you're sitting there, the fact is that his big kill on the black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking black jobs now, and it could be 18, it could be 19, and even 20 million people. They're taking black jobs, and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Thank you, President.
And the problem that people have with Donald Trump in this debate is that he would say phrases like the worst in our history. He's very exaggerant. But the problem that I have is that when you hear him speak, is what he's saying actually wrong? And I'm not saying that in terms of, oh, you didn't put any numbers, it's not the worst in our history, but talk about black jobs or Hispanic jobs. Will black people and Hispanic people lose jobs if the border continues to allow so and so many people in? And this is a real question. Will they lose jobs if, let's say, 20 million people come in per year illegally? Probably they will lose jobs. This is just common sense.
Biden?
There was no inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy was flat on its back. 50% unemployment. He decimated the economy, absolutely decimated the economy. That's why there was no inflation at the time. There were no jobs. We provided thousands of millions of jobs for individuals who were in all communities, including minority communities. We made sure that they have health insurance.
Are you insane? This is the biggest inflation I've ever seen in my life. This is like the most inflation ever. Oh my gosh, I wish y'all could see this chart. Do you guys see this chart? That peak is like, oh my gosh, it's hard to see. But that peak is like 2022. That's like mid presidency for you. Donald Trump was, oh my gosh, I wish you guys could see this. He's all the way over here at the bottom end. So yes, there was definitely inflation. I don't know what you're talking about. That's the biggest lie I've ever heard. There was so much inflation. Bro, I'm living in the inflation. I can see it.
We have covered, the ACA has increased. I made sure that there are $8,000 per person in a family to get written off for health care. But this guy wants to eliminate that. They tried 50 times. He wants to get rid of the ACA again. And they're going to try again if they win. You find ourselves in a position where the idea that we're not doing any, we put more police on the street than any administration has. He wants to cut the cops. We're providing for equity and making sure people have a shot to make it. There's a lot going on, but in inflation, he caused it by his tremendous malfeasance.
He caused it, and this is a real question for you. If he caused it, why did it peak in 2022? This was mid-presidency for you. COVID happened in 2020. Inflation peaked 2022, and now that it's on the decline, it's not nearly what it was anywhere as it was in 2016 to 2020. Not even close. So if he caused it, what are you doing to remedy it? You didn't even answer that question, really. No offense. And bro, I'm trying to be unbiased here, but it's like you're not answering the question. You just said he caused it, but the numbers say otherwise. The numbers say otherwise, bro. They didn't peak one time during his 4-year presidency. Not once. Like, not one time. They were like 5 times the rate during your presidency. I'm not making this up. I have the chart right here. Inflation was crazy. You can argue it was because of COVID. I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm just saying the numbers say otherwise.
The way he handled the pandemic.
Thank you. Another persistent challenge is the climate crisis. 2023 was the hottest year in recorded history, and communities across the country are confronting the devastating effects of extreme heat.
All right, I'll save this part for a later video, but if you like this, comment down below. It's LFR Jojo.